Hey everybody, and welcome to my N5 series on the Roland SP404 mk2, where I cover a topic in about 5 minutes. Ezekiel writes in and asks, or says, I've got an SP404 mk2, I've got an older MPC, might not be a 1000, but I figure this is old enough to have the conversation, and wants to know if the sequencer on the SP404 mk2 is good enough to be able to replace their older MPC that they've been using as the center of their studio. And I'm going to start by saying, even if you've got an MPC 60, like the original, like go back to the original, I almost guarantee that everything that you are doing is going to be so much better to do on a 60, a 3000, 2000. Like the MIDI sequencing is great. You can do multiple tracks. You can have MIDI CC and automation. You can like automate like anything that you really want to into external gear. And if you're trying to take the SP404 mk2 and route MIDI from it to an external synthesizer, you're going to have a really bad time. And there's a few reasons for this. One, if I go Shift Utility, go into System Settings here and go to MIDI, we have two modes. You've got MIDI mode A, which is basically if you don't know, each bank is assigned a MIDI channel. So bank A is MIDI channel 1, bank B MIDI channel 2, all the way up to bank J, which is MIDI channel 10. And this sounds fine until you realize that you can only play 16 notes across the pads here. You can't, so you basically get like an octave and a few extra notes. Like you get the 12 plus 4, so like an octave and a third. And these notes are all pre-assigned, so you're not going to be able to go like, and it's more in the bassy range than a higher melody. So it's going to require you to go into your external synthesizers and pinch things up and down. And because it's sharing these pads with the external notes for what's being sent, you're going to get potentially into a problem where you're playing pads and you're also trying to use that MIDI channel to play notes. And now you have to juggle what pads and samples you're playing versus what are notes that you're playing externally. That doesn't sound so bad when you're talking about having 10 MIDI channels, but if you go back in here and you switch to MIDI mode B, you'd be like, oh, well, I switched to B, and now I've got bank A through E is one MIDI channel, and then bank F through J is a second MIDI channel. I have a much extended range because basically it's going to start very low and go up to very high. So yeah, no doubt you will get a much extended range, but it's only across two channels. And then you could really start having to think like, okay, am I going to be sequencing only two instruments? And then if you're going to say that, then it's like, well, where am I leaving my space for playing pads? So effectively, one of the main problems with using the SP404 mk2 as a sequencer is it's fine in a pinch. Like if you've got an iPad or your phone or something, and you just need some pads to go play something and record it back in, totally works great. And I would say like for a okay passable instrument for some pads that you might want on like Koala or whatever, totally fine. But if you're going to be actually trying to orchestrate like you would with an MPC, something externally, you're going to have a much harder time. Now, let's get into some of the specifics here between like how the MPC, the older MPCs especially worked, is each like this. Frequently, you're going to have 32. You're going to have 64 tracks that you can actually go sequence. That's going to allow you to individually route. Like in this case, I mean, I got JJOS, but this is like basically allowing me to take this. I can assign a program to the like track 1, and I've also got it going to MIDI out, which is kind of the behavior you'd get. Like I can play, I'm actually playing like a note here, and it's triggering a note over here on the SP404 mk2, which isn't behavior you really want. So like I could turn this off, and you can hear like I'm just playing locally on the MPC. And I could then go create a new track here. If I go to like track 2, and I don't have to put a program on it. I just assign like whatever MIDI channel and which are the two MIDI jacks I want. So I've got two MIDI jacks here. I got A and B, and each jack can address up to 16 MIDI channels. I can conceivably route MIDI out to 32 external instruments. I just literally cannot do that from the SP404 Mark II because it's sharing so much of its architecture and how it's set up and works and behaves that it's just not something that's very feasible. So I'm not saying don't use the SP404 Mark II, and I'm not saying that you got to keep your MPC at all. But if you've anybody that's played with the MPCs will know, like having 64 separate tracks that you can route out to MIDI, it allows you to do things where like I can have one track is like my main kick drum. I can have a second track that might be ghost notes, and then you can use track mutes to mute in and out between those two. And whereas over here on the SP404 Mark II, I really only have pad mutes, which means I'm going to have to potentially, if I want to do that same type of thing, I'm going to be using two pads, one for my main kick and then the ghost kick. I'm going to have to create that as a separate one. And then I'm going to be using shift reverse to come in and like mute and unmute specific pads. But as I go through and change sequences or pattern, sequences here would allow me to pretty easily kind of work through a progression for a track and song. Over here, I'm now kind of having to go through using patterns and thinking through quite a bit more because it's going to put a lot of the load onto making those kinds of what I would say creative decisions on how and when and where you're using pad mutes and changing patterns. Whereas on the MPC, these older MPCs, you get a lot more freedom because you have you have tracks. You can do track mutes, you can do pad mutes, you can change sequences, you can really move around and do things. So um, it's hard. I just personally, I wouldn't use the SP404 Mark II in the way that I think Ezekiel's looking to do it, which is sequencing external gear. I would really avoid the SP404 Mark II for doing that, for like trying to like go out and play shows or anything. I think you're going to have a lot of things you're going to struggle with. And if you already have an MPC, the two of them pair beautifully together. I can take like a pair of outputs, like I've got 6 outputs here. I could, instead of going main out, I can go take these 2 outputs, like 3 and 4, bring those to the inputs on the SP404 Mark II. Then anything I want to route specifically through the SP as an effect to get like different kinds of effects, I can route that over to the SP404 Mark II. Then I can take the outputs and bring them back into the inputs on the MPC. And I immediately have an FX loop, and this allows me to just shoot stuff over really quick, get some effects, resample on either device, and kind of keep things moving. We've got the looper over here. JJOS does provide a looper, but having 2 loopers that you can work independently, really helpful and handy. And besides that, like I would also say, one of the things that just frustrates me about the SP404 Mark II is motion record. We don't have like you can either record your effects, like the knob motions for anything that's got a control for 1 through 3, so the first 3, but if you are trying to automate anything in the bank behind this, it cannot be recorded through motion record, at least in firmware 5.101 or whatever we're on right now. Whereas on the SP4 from the MPC to the SP404 Mark II, like you have Q links here, we can map these to any controls that are mappable on the SP404 Mark II. So you can do control knob 1 through control knob 6. We can automate what parameters are, or what buses for bus 1 through bus 4, what effect is actually lit up. So you can do a ton of automation with something even as old as like the MPC 1000 or older, that is just things that you cannot do on the SP404 Mark II. So, and this is why I'm saying like having an upgraded sequencer from the SP404 SX and A line to what we have on the SP404 Mark II is great. This allows you to take just this box by itself and go out in the wild, go travel, and you can do an awful lot with it by itself as long as you're willing to work within its constraints. But I also keep telling folks, like, it pairs so much better with something that has a much more robust and fully featured sequencer, like what you can get on a lot of the MPCs, even the modern ones. So I hope this explains to you, Ezekiel, like what my thoughts are on this. What I would suggest doing is keep your MPC and pair it as best you can with the SP404 Mark II. And I think the SP404 Mark II does help modernize it a lot because you get the USB jack on the back. So you can just plug your phone in here or, tablet or computer really quick to just add in like a third device and help get audio between them. You've also got your guitar and mic jack on the front. So the SP404 Mark II, you might say, hey, it overlaps a lot. It's got a sequencer, way better sequencer on the MPC. Sampling, by and large, is going to be a much better experience, although chopping is probably going to be better on your MPC, depending on which one you've got. Especially if you want to have multiple chops, FX so much better on the SP404 Mark II. Really helps accentuate what you can do on your MPC, and yeah, I don't know, they just pair great together. So everybody, thanks for stopping by. Keep making music, keep having fun. Remember, if it sounds good, it is good. And peace.